Ethan, what's your wife's name again? The one from last time, someone deliberately asked loudly in a private club. Ethan Sue lounged lazily on the sofa, with an internet-famous face sitting in his arms. Upon hearing this, he seemed to think seriously for a moment, then smiled. I don't remember. An unimportant name. The whole room burst into laughter. I stood in the corner holding my wine glass, my fingers clenched white. Unimportant. Barry, my name, wasn't even worthy of a seat in his mouth. This marriage was my public execution ground. Ethan, what's your wife's name again? The one from last time, someone deliberately asked loudly in a private club. Ethan Sue lounged lazily on the sofa, with an internet-famous face sitting in his arms. Upon hearing this, he seemed to think seriously for a moment, then smiled. I don't remember. An unimportant name. The whole room burst into laughter. I stood in the corner holding a wine glass, my fingers clenched white. It doesn't matter. Barry, my name, isn't even worthy of a place in his mouth. This marriage is the execution ground where I am publicly punished. The wedding 3 years ago still feels as vivid as if it were yesterday, grand and luxurious, yet cold without a trace of warmth. Ethan wore a bespoke suit, handsome like a god, but the look in his eyes was colder than the Siberian wind. During the vows, his voice was flat, as if merely fulfilling an unavoidable duty. Exchanging rings, his fingertips touched mine, and I could even feel his momentary stiffness and disgust. The whispers of the guests below, those looks of sympathy, mockery, and anticipation of a spectacle, pricked me like needles. Look, it's her, the one who caused her own sister's death and still managed to marry her sister's fiancé. What a skillful move. I heard Mr. Sue was forced into it, marrying only for the sake of cooperation between the two families. TSK. This woman really has a big heart to be able to live through days like this. Yeah, I also think I have a big heart. The day after the wedding, Ethan moved out of our nominal marital home and returned to his private apartment. We began living apart, with almost no communication except for necessary business occasions. He never shied away from the coldness in our relationship, and was even happy to show everyone his disgust for me. Just like tonight, a blonde, blue-eyed woman holding a wine glass swayed gracefully to stand in front of me, a provocative smile curling on her red lips. Miss Barry? Oh no, I should say Mrs. Sue. I really envy you. To be able to marry a man like Ethan. She deliberately emphasized the words Mrs. Sue. Her eyes filled with undisguised contempt. I know who she is. Ethan's recent new flame, a little-known model. There are too many women in the circle trying to get into Ethan's bed. They all see me as a thorn in their side, or rather, an easy soft target to manipulate. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, showing a polite fake smile. Is that so? Then you probably don't know what it takes to maintain this marriage. She was stunned for a moment, probably not expecting me to react that way. I was too lazy to argue with her and turned to leave. Behind me came Ethan's cold voice. Don't mention her to me. The voice was soft, yet like an ice pick, instantly piercing my heart. I stopped in my tracks, without looking back. I knew this sentence was meant for that model, and also for me. Don't mention her to me. Barry, a name he hated to the core. This marriage was, from the start, a thorough and complete transaction. The Sue family needed the resources of our Jiang family to stabilize the market, while our family needed the Sue family's financial support to get through difficulties. I was the pawn placed on the bargaining table. I am clear about my position. I have never dared to hope for Ethan's love, not even his loyalty. As long as he fulfills the contract on time, plays the role of husband well, gives me a title, and spares the Jiang family from too much embarrassment, that is enough. I thought I could endure it. But the human heart, after all, is made of flesh. Why does Ethan hate me so much? Because of that car accident 8 years ago. That day, I went out with my sister Evelyn Jiang. A runaway truck came rushing towards us. At the critical moment, Evelyn suddenly pushed me away. She used her own body to shield me from the deadly impact. Evelyn, my half-sister, the cherished gem of the Jiang family, the woman Ethan Sue had loved dearly for years. She died. To save me, the humble daughter of a mistress. When Ethan arrived at the hospital, he saw Evelyn lying in a pool of blood, already lifeless, and me, the culprit, completely unharmed but just stunned with fear. From that day on, he cut off all contact with me. It wasn't until 3 years ago that news of the union between the two families came. The way he looked at me was filled with deep, bitter hatred. as if my very existence was the greatest desecration to Evelyn. By the 10th month after the wedding, reports of discord in our marriage were growing more and more intense. Some media outlets captured Ethan entering and leaving hotels with different female companions for an entire week. There were even reports speculating that our marriage is about to come to an end. These baseless rumors directly affected the stock price of the Sue Group. Although the fluctuations were minor, they were enough to make Ethan angry. That night, I had just finished showering and was about to go to bed. The door of the villa was kicked open. Ethan, reeking of alcohol and with bloodshot eyes, rushed in like an enraged beast. He clenched a red marriage certificate in his hand and slammed it hard against my face. The edge of the paper scraped across my cheek, leaving a burning sting. "Barry, do you think I'm being too lenient with you?" he growled, stepping closer with each word. "Who do you think you are? How dare you cause me trouble?" His eyes were wild and violent, a look I had never seen before. I instinctively stepped back, my back pressed against the cold wall, with nowhere left to retreat. "I didn't," he sneered, suddenly grabbing my chin with a large hand, the force almost crushing my bones. "Weren't those news leaks from you? Trying to force me to publicly admit your identity as Mrs. Sue? Trying to secure your position?" "I didn't. It wasn't me." I shook my head desperately, tears uncontrollably streaming down. He simply doesn't believe it. Perhaps in his heart, I am just such a despicable and scheming woman, willing to harm my own sister just to marry him, willing to use vile means to manipulate public opinion in order to secure my position. His kiss was less a kiss and more a gnawing bite, laden with a sense of punishment, rough and wild. I could clearly feel his anger and hatred, overwhelming me like a tide. The clothes were torn apart violently. Pain swept through my entire body in an instant. I was like a dying fish, struggling in vain, unable to escape. Throughout the whole process, I bit my lip hard, not letting out a single sound, until it was all over. He withdrew and left. The room was left with only my heavy breathing and suppressed sobbing. He stood by the bed, looking down at me from above, his eyes regaining some clarity but still cold. After a while, he threw out a light sorry and turned to leave. Just like throwing away a piece of used trash, I curled up on the bed, my whole body aching. My stomach churned violently, and I rushed to the bathroom, vomiting uncontrollably. In the mirror, a pale and disheveled face stared back at me. My neck and arms were covered with bruises. I looked at myself in the mirror and suddenly felt utterly unfamiliar. This is me, Barry Jeong. Oh no, now it's Barry Sue, a woman living in her sister's shadow, burdened with the label of murderer, a poor soul hated, despised, and even subjected to violence by her husband. Actually, I understand Ethan's hatred. If it were me, I would hate too. Hate the one who took away the life of my beloved, resent the one who should have died but clung to life instead. So I never dared to ask for his forgiveness, let alone his love. I don't even care about his money. When I signed that prenuptial agreement, I almost walked away with nothing. I just want a peaceful life, a life where I can quietly atone, slowly wearing away this life that Evelyn exchanged her life for, a life I do not want. Sometimes, I even think, how wonderful it would be if I had died that day. Evelyn could be happily together with Ethan. I wouldn't have to bear such a heavy shackle, living like a walking corpse. My childhood was spent in humility and trying to please others. My mom was the mistress who could never be acknowledged publicly. In the Jeong family, my mother and I held a status even lower than the servants. Mother always kept her head down, wearing a cautious smile for everyone, and I was like her shadow, or rather, Evelyn's little follower. Since I was young, I have followed Evelyn like a little servant. Wherever she went, I went too. I strive to learn whatever she likes. When she is happy, I smile. When she is unhappy, I find ways to cheer her up. I have gotten used to pleasing her, pleasing everyone. That kind of humiliation etched deep into my bones taught me to read people's expressions from a young age, always wearing a pleasing smile on my face, even when my heart was full of wounds. Actually, I once had feelings for Ethan that I shouldn't have had. During high school, he was the school's star, the center of attention on the basketball court, from a prestigious family, handsome and dazzling, and I was just the ugly duckling trailing behind Evelyn. I could only hide in the corner, secretly watching him smile gently at Evelyn, watching them stand together, perfectly matched like a golden boy and jade girl. I know I am not worthy of him. My background, my identity, are like an insurmountable chasm. I don't even dare let him know of my existence. I could only be like a humble parasite, clinging to Evelyn and his relationships, secretly drawing a tiny, insignificant bit of warmth. That small spark of secret admiration was quickly extinguished by reality. That day, it was free time during PE class. A few classmates and I were chatting by the edge of the playground. I don't know who brought up my background. Harsh laughter broke out. Hey, look, that's the daughter of that mistress. I heard her mother got ahead by using her body. Truly shameless. No wonder you've been following Evelyn around all day. Turns out you're trying to climb the social ladder. Those words were like poisoned needles, stabbing sharply into my heart. I stood there awkwardly, at a loss, my face burning red. Just then, I saw Ethan. He had just finished playing basketball with a few friends and was walking over from the court. He heard those remarks. I clearly saw the trace of a mocking smile curl at the corner of his mouth. That smile was like a sharp knife, completely piercing through the strength I pretended to have. It completely extinguished that unrealistic fantasy in my heart. It turned out that, in his eyes, I was no different from those who mocked me. I was just that lowly daughter of the mistress. From that day on, I never had any improper feelings for Ethan Sue again. Only the deep-rooted inferiority and alienation remain. Time passes quickly. In the blink of an eye, the 4-year marriage contract between Ethan and me is about to expire. These 4 years, I have lived like a transparent person, guarding an empty, magnificent cage. Day after day, I had long been prepared to leave. I began quietly packing my things. Not many, just a small suitcase. In these 4 years, I have hardly acquired anything that truly belongs to me. Everything here belongs to Ethan Sue, or rather, to Evelyn Jiang. Strangely, Ethan's behavior has been somewhat unusual lately. He has been returning to the old house more frequently. Although still cold, he no longer acts like before, when he wouldn't even bother to glance at me. Occasionally, he would bring back some gifts, designer bags, expensive jewelry, limited edition fashion. I don't understand what he is trying to do. Could it be that his conscience has awakened, and he wants to give me some compensation before the contract ends? Or is this yet another way he humiliates me? I refused outright. He said nothing either, just casually threw the things aside, and then left silently. The atmosphere between us seemed to ease a little, but this easing only made me more uneasy. That night, I received a call from Ethan's assistant. David, Madam, Ethan has been drinking too much at the Charm Club. Could you come and pick him up? I frowned. He used to get drunk and be taken back to the apartment by David or the driver, never once calling me, but I still went. After all, until the contract ends, I am still the nominal Mrs. Sue. In the private room of the club, smoke swirled and the air was thick with the smell of alcohol. Ethan collapsed on the sofa, drunk out of his mind. A few rowdy friends were still making a ruckus nearby. When they saw me come in, they exchanged a glance and tactfully left. I walked over and tried to help Ethan up. He was heavy, reeking strongly of alcohol, with almost his entire body pressing down on me. I struggled to lift him up and walked out. Reaching the door, he suddenly murmured softly, "Home." My heart suddenly trembled. Going home? Which home? Is it his apartment that belongs only to him, or our nominally married home that exists in name only? He leaned on my shoulder, his warm breath, tinged with alcohol, brushing against my ear. He suddenly began to hum softly. It was a very old English song, the third person. The lyrics tell of the bitterness and helplessness of an onlooker. My heart tightened. He rarely listens to such melancholic songs. Then, he lifted his head, his eyes hazy as he looked at me, a faint, indistinct smile seeming to curl at the corner of his mouth. "Before, you were Evelyn's shadow," he slurred intermittently. Now you are Barry, my wife." My body froze instantly. Did he even know what he was saying? Or is it just drunken talk? I shoved him into the car, silent all the way, and took him back to our bridal suite. Looking at his sleeping profile, still handsome, but with a trace of fatigue and vulnerability, suddenly, I felt a bit dazed. What exactly have these 4 years meant to us? A few days later, I chose a moment when he was sober to calmly bring up the divorce in the study of the old house. "Ethan, our contract is about to expire. I think we can go ahead and handle the formalities early." He was reading some documents, but upon hearing this, he suddenly looked up, his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. "What did you say?" I said, "Let's get a divorce." I repeated it calmly, even with a hint of relief. He stared at me intently, as if trying to read something from my face. Was it a test? A tactic of playing hard to get? Or did he have other intentions? But there was nothing on my face, only calmness, a stillness like dead water. Just as he was about to say something, his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, furrowed his brow, and answered the phone. What is it? Okay, I understand. I'll be there right away. He hung up the phone, grabbed his coat, and gave me a hurried glance, his eyes full of complexity. We'll talk about the divorce later. After saying that, he left without looking back. In the following days, he began deliberately avoiding me. I called him, but he didn't answer. I sent messages, but he didn't reply. I know he's stalling. Maybe he's unwilling to accept it? Or maybe he feels humiliated because he was dumped by a woman he always looked down on? I don't want to care about what he thinks. The end of the year is approaching, and the contract is about to expire. I just want to finish the procedures as soon as possible, completely break free from this suffocating relationship, get away from this place, and escape everything related to Ethan Sue. Since he is avoiding me, then I will go find him. I decided to confront him at the Sue group. However, plans cannot keep up with changes. That afternoon, I was about to leave for the Sue group when I unexpectedly ran into Ethan at the old house's entrance. He reeked of alcohol and staggered, clearly drunk again. Seeing me, he froze for a moment. Then his eyes became painfully troubled and agitated. It suddenly struck me that today was Evelyn's birthday. It was also the anniversary of her death. He really hadn't let go yet. Or rather, he never would be able to let go. He staggered into the room, like a madman, and began rummaging through the drawers and cabinets. I saw him take a dust-covered box from the cabinet at the very back of the study. I knew it contained all of Evelyn's relics. Those were things he had treasured for 8 years. Things I was not even allowed to touch. Then, holding that box, he stumbled out of the villa and headed toward the trash bin by the door. A sudden shock hit my heart, and I instinctively chased after him. Ethan, what are you doing? He ignored me, his eyes vacant, but his actions were resolute. He opened the trash can lid and without hesitation, threw the entire bin, along with all the precious memories inside, into it. A muffled bang. It was as if something inside him had completely shattered. My mind went completely blank. Those deliberately suppressed memories of the car accident 8 years ago surged forth all at once. The screeching sound of brakes, Evelyn's terrified face, warm, fresh blood, heart-wrenching pain, not physical, but spiritual. My whole body began to tremble uncontrollably, my face turned pale, and I had difficulty breathing. Just as I was about to suffocate, a pair of strong arms suddenly embraced me tightly. It was Ethan. He held me firmly, his body trembling slightly as well. Warm liquid dripped down my neck. He is crying. That eternally cold and proud Ethan Sue is actually crying. He buried his face in my neck, his voice choked with endless pain and regret. I'm sorry, Barry, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. That's not your fault. You are a survivor. You are just a survivor. You are Barry. You are not a murderer. Every word he spoke was like a heavy hammer, striking hard against my heart. So, he knew all along. He knew what I had been carrying all these years. He knew my pain and struggles. He even felt guilty towards me. I let him hold me, my body still trembling, but my consciousness slowly returning. After a long time, his emotions finally calmed down a little. I gently pushed him away, looked into his bloodshot eyes, my voice eerily calm. Ethan, I understand your hatred. Truly, I have always understood. Evelyn died to save me. I owe you a life, and I owe her a life. So, these past 4 years, I accepted it. Now, the contract has expired. Let me go. I don't want to be entangled in the past anymore. You should let go too. My calmness seemed even harder for him to accept than his own breakdown. He looked at me, his eyes filled with panic and fear. No, Barry, don't go. Since that day, Ethan seemed like a different person. He no longer avoided me. He started calling me frequently and sending messages. He asked me what I ate, what I did, and even shared some things about his work. Cautiously, like a young boy tasting the feeling of love for the first time, he even began to ask, Barry, can we not get a divorce? I did not answer. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that I find it ridiculous. What were you doing all this time? Who are you putting on this deep, affectionate act for now? For someone like me, whom you once discarded like worthless trash, irrelevant? Until that day, when he once again asked about the possibility of not getting a divorce, I finally couldn't bear it and hung up the phone. Not long after, he called again. This time, His voice carried a faint trace of nervousness and anticipation. Barry, I found something. These are Evelyn's old things. There are some letters inside. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. Letters? He paused, his voice somewhat strained. Those letters. Signed by Evelyn. But, the handwriting. He took a deep breath. When I was in high school, I received some anonymous letters encouraging me, supporting me. I always thought they were written by Evelyn, until I saw those letters in the box. The same handwriting. Barry, those letters, you wrote them, didn't you? My breath caught. Yes, those letters were written by me. Back then, that humble girl who secretly admired him gathered her courage and conveyed her feelings through clumsy words. I didn't dare to sign my own name, so I had to use Evelyn's name instead, because I knew that only if I signed Evelyn's name would he look. Only then would he feel that the warmth and encouragement came from the one he loved. I was silent for a long time. On the other end of the phone, Ethan's voice carried a trembling hope. So, Barry, the one I liked back then, was the Evelyn in the letter. It was you, wasn't it? The belated truth was like a huge irony. He hated me for 8 years, yet he didn't know that the vague shadow he once felt for was actually me. I smiled softly, with a trace of melancholy. Yes, I wrote the letter. On the other end of the phone came his relieved breath. So, but, Ethan, I interrupted him, my tone calm and resolute. So what? Even if the one you liked back then wasn't Evelyn, but me, what difference would it make? I don't love you anymore. I stopped loving you a long time ago. He seemed stunned by my words, silent for a long moment. Why? He asked with difficulty. Is it because over the years I have? Not entirely, I said calmly. The things you did to me did cause me pain, but the moment I truly stopped loving you was many years ago. It was when you were on the playground, hearing others call me the mistress's daughter, and you showed that mocking smile. That smile completely killed the last trace of my feelings for you. Ethan, you've always looked down on my background, haven't you? In your eyes, I will always be that lowly daughter of the mistress. After I finished speaking, I hung up the phone without waiting for his reply. The phone slipped from my hand, fell to the ground, and made a crisp sound. I didn't pick it up. I just felt an unprecedented sense of relief, like a giant stone I had carried for 8 years, finally pushed away by my own hand. The day before New Year's Eve, Ethan and I, accompanied by a lawyer, smoothly completed the divorce procedures. The entire process was unusually calm. No arguments, no entanglements. He sat across from me, his face pale, with obvious dark circles under his eyes. He looked at me, his eyes complex, filled with reluctance, pain, but more than anything, a sense of helplessness. At the moment of signing the final document, he suddenly spoke. Barry, that villa, I'm giving it to you. He was referring to the old house we never lived in after we got married. No need, I refused decisively and neatly. Also, the shares of the Sue family, I saved you a portion. I said, I don't want it. I signed my name and closed the pen cap. He was silent for a moment, his voice low. Barry, I really like your berries. Barry, my name. He pronounced my name so gently for the first time, with a kind of deep affection, or rather, a belated confession. I really like your berries. If this sentence had been said 8 years ago, it might have made me deliriously happy. 4 years ago, it might have stirred my heart. But now, it only makes me feel numb. I looked up at him calmly and said, Ethan, what you like is not berries. What you like is the humble, pleasing me who hides in Evelyn's shadow. What you like is the Evelyn you think is writing letters to you. What you like is the perfect image you have imagined. Not me, Barry Jeong, or rather, Barry Sue. I am just me. I stood up, took my divorce certificate and a simple suitcase. Goodbye, Ethan. I did not look back. Stepping out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, the sunlight warmed my face gently. Breathing in the air of freedom, I felt an unprecedented sense of relaxation, a lightness as if a heavy burden had been lifted. This day, I had finally been waiting for. New Year's Eve, I didn't go back to the Jeong family, nor did I go anywhere else. I found a hotel to stay in alone outside, watching the myriad lights outside the window, listening to the continuous sound of firecrackers. No Ethan, no Sue family, no Jeong family, only myself. I made myself a cup of hot tea and sat by the window, quietly welcoming the new year. The next day, the first day of the Lunar New Year, I did not go visiting relatives and friends. I took a taxi to the cemetery, Evelyn's grave. 8 years have passed, This is the first time I have stood so calmly in front of her tombstone. In the photo on the tombstone, she smiles beautifully, gentle and radiant, just like how I remember her. I put down the flowers in my hand and crouched down. No tears, only a desire to confide, heavy for too long. Evelyn, I spoke, my voice a little hoarse. It's been 8 years. I've come to see you. I looked at her photo, my gaze calm. You know, these 8 years, I haven't had a good time at all. You risked your life to save me. I should be grateful to you, right? But, Evelyn, I don't feel grateful, only guilt, endless guilt. And, I paused, my voice lowering. There's also a kind of pain caused by being a burden to you. I can feel the bitterness in my heart, but the tears still haven't fallen. Do you know that after you left, I lived like a ghost, carrying the burden of your death, bearing everyone's accusations, married to Ethan, living a life worse than death. I have never lived a single day for myself. Evelyn, in the next life, if you face danger in the next life, don't push me away again. If we are to live, we will live together. If we're going to die, let's die together. What I owe you, I never want to repay in the next life. I stood up and took a long, deep look at the photo on the tombstone. Evelyn, goodbye. This time, I am truly saying goodbye to my past, saying goodbye to you, saying goodbye to Ethan, saying goodbye to that nightmarish marriage. Leaving the cemetery, I walked down the street. The sunlight shone on me, warm and gentle. The phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, but still answered. Hello, is this Miss Barry Jiang? Yes, this is Johnson and Partners Law Firm. Regarding the assistant position you applied for earlier, we would like to invite you for an interview tomorrow. I was momentarily stunned. This was the resume I sent out before my divorce. A pretty good law firm. A smile slowly curled at the corner of my mouth. Okay, thank you. I will be there on time tomorrow. After hanging up the phone, I stood still, looked up towards the distance. A new life has begun.